Donald Trump has been a little bit restrained over the past couple of years in terms of his willingness to openly break the law. He has dabbled with it at times, and certainly he has no interest in traditions and norms and conventions and all of that. But when it comes to the strict letter of the law, generally he has been willing to go along with it. But we might be entering a phase of his presidency where he's not a fan of that anymore. And that reporting came about yesterday in conversations that he had with people working at the border. We're going to get to that in just a second. But first, his messaging in general about the border has become more xenophobic with every passing day. Last Friday, he was visiting California and he said, quote, "We're full. Our system's full. Our country's full. Can't come in. Our country is full. What can you do? We can't handle anymore. Our country is full. Can't come in. I'm sorry." It's very simple. I had to resist the urge to do 10 minutes breaking down all the way that's ridiculous. I will just quickly say that there are any number of major cities that have 500,000 or 1 million less people than they did back in 1950. We are less population dense than I believe 145 other countries, which is most of them actually. And so the reason I'm not going to go more in depth is because I don't think anybody actually believes that we're full and we can't take the people. It's just a way of dehumanizing them and saying that they don't have enough value for them to be considered a worthwhile addition to our country. So understand that that's what he's saying about immigrants and migrants recently, but let's move on with some of the scarier stuff. Behind the scenes, two sources told CNN the president told border agents to not let migrants in. "Tell them we don't have the capacity," he said. "If judges give you trouble, say, 'Sorry, judge, I can't do it. We don't have the room.'" And so that's two different sources, two different fake news sources, since of course they come from CNN. I'm sure the president is going to attack them very soon. But what they're saying there is that he is telling border officers, people with the authority to detain or let pass various people, to pursue investigations or not, those who are going to be dealing with these migrants when they're being held in the barbaric conditions that we've seen. And he's telling them that if a judge gives you an order, don't follow what the judge says. The idea of checks and balances, I find it inconvenient. And so don't feel like you should be obligated to actually pursue that. And if you think, oh, that's Donald Trump being folksy or joking around, the border officers apparently didn't get the joke. After the president left the room, agents sought further advice from their leaders who told them they were not giving them that direction. And if they did what the president said, they would take on personal liability. You have to follow the law, they were told. I wish someone had told the president that, because he apparently doesn't think that he's required to anymore. And so you had people, like I don't know how many people were in the room, but they're working in California on the border. They're the ones who are responsible for putting into effect his immigration agenda. And he's telling them, do not feel bound by the law anymore. And of course, we know from the last week or so, especially since Kirstjen Nielsen stepped down as head of Department of Homeland Security, that he doesn't feel in general like he should be bound by the law anymore. That is what led to her being kicked out. She apparently kept telling him that, look, I am all in for your immigration agenda. I hate these people as much as you do. Let's cage them if we find them. But we do have to abide by the law. And he found that to be too constraining, and that led to multiple blowups behind the scenes. It led to a meeting whose express purpose was to patch over their differences and chart a path going forward on immigration for Kirstjen Nielsen and Donald Trump, instead to her tendering her resignation, because once again, she apparently told him that I'm not going to break the law for you, and he will not abide that anymore. And by the way, it goes beyond Kirstjen Nielsen. She's obviously the highest profile departure of the past week or so, but more are planned. New York Times had a headline, Trump purge set to force out more top Homeland Security officials. Now, on any of these individual ones, like the director of the Secret Service, some of the undersecretaries of Homeland Security, I don't know enough about their personal politics or their history with Donald Trump to tell you exactly what they've clashed with him in terms of. But he apparently feels like those who have been instituting his agenda over the past couple of years are not sufficiently loyal, not sufficiently deferential to his personal will, held aloft over not only traditions and norms, but also regulations and laws and court orders. And understand the context that we're talking about here. Just about 24 hours ago, a judge said that his statement that those who are pursuing coming in from Mexico and waiting for asylum have to wait in Mexico. They can't come in while pursuing asylum. The judge struck that down. And so that's another one of these things where the judiciary has thankfully saved us from the worst excesses of the Trump presidency. Will he feel bound by that? Is that actually what he was talking with the border agents about? I don't know. We don't have any more inside information about it. But in the future, we have been able, in the past I should say, we've been able to count on the courts to save us just a little bit every once in a while. And he is specifically saying that judges should not be followed anymore. And if he thinks that a border officer can take it upon himself or herself unilaterally to not follow a court order, how bound by one do you think Donald Trump will be? And outside of immigration, if he is required, for instance, by law to hand in his tax returns, as we're going to talk about in a minute, if it goes to the Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court says, oh, you actually have to do this, will he feel bound by that? Why would he at this point when he has set the precedent that he has already? And in terms of the stakes, we talked about this yesterday. I just want to remind you, Jake Tapper reports that Trump wants families separated even if they appear at ports of entry requesting asylum. Quote, he just wants to separate families, said an unnamed senior administration official. So when he goes about flouting these court orders, when he tells the judges to go stuff it and then does what he wants is to separate families. And not just families that break the law by crossing the border, those who follow exactly the letter of the law. They go to a port of entry, they formally apply for asylum. He wants to separate those families, not because he has to, not because he needs to, but because he wants to. And that is a scary precedent going forward as well. Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.